In this segment, we'll delve into one of the special features of WordSeer, which is its grammatical search capability. Using computational linguistics, WordSeer analyzes each sentence in a text and pulls out grammatical relationships between words, then allows you to search over them and discover new things about the words through that. It's actually much easier to show than to explain in words, so let's get to it. It's time now to look at an option in the search bar that we've neglected so far, the grammatical search options. When you leave it set to anywhere in the text, as we have been, that's like a regular search. It just matches the word or phrase you type in. But if not, if you select a different option, it does a grammatical search. Like, for example, economy. A word like economy is interesting because it gets talked about in a lot of different contexts. What are these contexts, and how do we get a sense of what they are? Let's see how to do that with grammatical search. And now let's choose the described as relation, which picks out the adjectives that apply to a word. And you'll notice that when I select that relation, another search box appears. But I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And what that will do is pick out all the adjectives that apply to economic and return all of them. And check with stemming, so we'll include economies and economic, if applicable. And now let's use the visualization that's built specifically for grammatical search, which is grammatical search bar chart. So there we are. That's the result. There are two charts here, one for economy words, and on the other side are all the adjectives that apply to these words. And at the bottom, there's sentences that match. So we see economy highlighted, and then also the adjectives as well. And the graphs at the top summarize all these different adjectives according to their frequency. And the graphs are interactive. So we see that global is the most frequent with 142 occurrences, and when I hover over it, you see that it shows me. After that, it's American, Chinese, Japanese, and a whole host of other words. If I click, I filter. So here, if I scroll down for a bit and click on the word vibrant, that's going to filter the sentences below and just show me those in which vibrant describes economy. See, it's just vibrant economy in these sentences. So that's one way to explore. But I had to do a lot of thinking first. I had to think of the word I wanted to explore, economy, and then decide which grammatical relation to use. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes you just see words and then you want to know more about them. WordSeer lets you do that through the word menu, which we haven't seen so far. Suppose I wanted to do that, to discover the different ways in which China was talked about in these editorials. Well, this is how I would do that with the word menu. So this is the word menu. It appears when you right-click on a word anywhere in the text. It has a lot of options, but for now, the only one you need to worry about is these, the search options. So if I hover over search, it shows me all the grammatical relations with other words that I can search for. So China by itself occurs that many times, but I see all these other grammatical relationships too. If I hover over any of those, it actually shows me the individual words in order of frequency, sort of like a preview of these bar charts. So for example, the conjunction relationships, that's like the and relationships. When I hover over that, I see India and China, or Russia and China, Japan and China. So that's the way that China works with the word and. These are the other words that appear with that kind of relationship to it. That's interesting. Well, if I want to look at the full list and see the sentences, I can actually just click that option, China conjunction, and it's going to open it up in a new window. See, that's the new panel showing me China conjunction blank and all the words that enter into it. So India, China, Russia, Japan, etc. But let's go back to the word menu and explore some other relations. The other relationships are the same way. So for example, noun compound. That's when two nouns come together and make a new term. Let's see what the noun compounds are like around China. So that's pretty predictable actually. Policy and things like that. But what's this one? Card. That's China card. What's that? To investigate, I'm going to click on it directly and just see those sentences. What does it mean? Okay, so the graph looks a little weird because it's just China on one end and card on the other. It's a very specific grammatical relationship that I'm querying. But let's look at the sentences. Okay, well, it does appear to be what it sounds like, a political playing card of sorts, and I'm noticing that most of these sentences are from the 80s. Let's look at the metadata to confirm that. Well, look at that. It is really largely an 80s term. I can just count how many there were in the 80s out of those 21 sentences, and most of them. That's very interesting. So in the 80s, basically what this is telling us is that China was this political playing card that US leaders would play, and then you can see that reflected in the most frequent verb in these sentences here. It's play. And the nouns, it's all about the Cold War. Putin, US, Russians. Actually, a word menu doesn't even have to be in the text. It can be basically anywhere that you see a word in WordSeer. So for example, in the frequent word overviews too, and even in the word tree, basically wherever you see a word that turns blue like this, you can make a word menu out of it. So let's actually look at card here and see what other kinds of cards there are. Now that's interesting. China card is by far the most frequent noun compound. And then predictable things like credit card and loyalty card. There are a few similar types of cards. There's a Shiite card and a Holocaust card, but that's once each. But for example, there appears to be no such thing as a Japan card. So in this segment, we saw how we can use the word menu's grammatical features to explore the ways that a word relates to other words and to discover the ways it's most frequently used. In the next segment, we'll see how the word menu helps you explore words by seeing other words that occur along with it in sentences.